a lot of people come in with, like doctors and stuff like that, and they know anatomy better than I do.
Yeah.
As far as like what it does and how it functions, but that doesn't mean they can draw it. You gotta understand it as a shape and how it looks three-dimensionally in space, and that's the hard part to do. And it just, everyone's a little bit different. People are wired a little bit differently. Some can retain information a lot easier. Yeah. Some people, you just have to beat it into them as far as like drawing this over and over and over again until you got it. And then even then, it doesn't stick with you. You got to just keep drawing it. Yeah. If you're going to invent figures, you got to just draw figures all day long. Yeah. And if you stop for a year or two, you're going to see your skills go down. Yeah. So that's the hard part, is it's a perishable skill to a degree. But that's also why you do it, is because you like doing it. So, but it makes it incredibly difficult.
Hey guys, in this episode I'm joined by Ben M. Young. He's a fine artist and instructor at the Watts Atelier. He's known for his figurative academic stuff and his plein air painting. I spent a ton of time taking classes with Ben at the Watts, and I really think he's one of the best drawing instructors out there. In this episode, we talk about how he got into art and how he kept it interesting enough for himself to keep doing it. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. I guess, so for context, the way I usually start these is, the point of this is not to talk about, like, how you become an artist, like how to draw spheres or how to draw a figure or how to, like, get a job in the industry or anything. It's more about like, the why of doing it. Like, how does somebody, like, start out as, like, essentially somebody in their, like, high school or somebody in just, like, classroom, like, they're sketching, like doodling on their math homework or something, to being like a professional artist or something, and I think it's way more about like finding the like the habit of actually loving to draw and looking for the reasons to do it versus like, I think that learning how to draw a figure can actually take like a year or something. It's not nearly as complicated as people make it out to be. The hard part is like, how do you do it for 40 or 50 years or something, Did you have any initial thoughts on that, or?
Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it just, if you want to do it obviously very well, it takes a long time, but just to get some of the basics and get going, and it doesn't take too long, and you got to figure out why you want to do this, right? If you just want to tell stories, you don't need to be the best artist in the world to do that. You just need to be able to convey your ideas. So that kind of thing is, something that could be relatively kind of quick to learn some of those concepts and get going. So, I mean, that's the main thing I would say, is don't get too caught up on mastery and perfecting everything. Just learn what you need to do what you want to do. And, then you'll get better at it, and the mastery will come with time as you practice your art. And, you should still always leave room for time for study and improving. But really, that's the main thing, I think, is just figuring out what you want to do and what you want to say.
Right. Well, I think the path of figuring out what you want to do is like a long and arduous path filled with like lots of mistakes and errors. It's like you are, I perceive you guys at the Watts Atelier, like you and Eric and Jeff, and are like pursuing some kind of mastery, and you've like reached a level of figure drawing that I think is pretty uncommon in the world. Like, I don't know really many professional artists who do that as well as you guys. And sorry.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was almost just kind of like, because I don't know what I want to do. That was the option. I'll just keep getting better skills, and maybe eventually I'll figure this out. Yeah, that is the hard part. Being young, you might not have much to say just because you haven't lived your life, and So as I get older, that I was hoping more. I'd have something to say, and I'm starting to, but it's taken a while.
Well, but I think that act of getting better, it's like, I hear from all the time, people should just start doing, like, they just start doing something, and then eventually you'll fall into that, just naturally, and you committing fully to this thing, just having faith, or just like learning to just love the craft of it, or just having something to do, is the thing that actually puts you on the path to eventually figuring that out, rather than just like sitting in your room and like logicking it out, just trying to rationalize everything,
Yeah. The main thing is just, you don't want that like hesitation or unwillingness or not all these unknowns that just kind of prevent you from doing something, making a decision. You just got to jump into it.
Yeah. I remember I had Morgan Weisling on once, and he was telling me like, dude, I never thought about it that much, And I think my like in the art education sphere online, there's this like almost prophetic worship of teachers, where if somebody is doing it correct, like perceived to be correct, another teacher is doing it incorrectly, Mm-hmm. And the more that I'm moving forward, the more I'm realizing it's like there's no incorrect or correct answer. The like right way to move forward. It's just like just drawing, just doing something and just like leaning into that fully, because I don't think anyone really knows what they want to do when they grow up,
Yeah. I mean, it would be great if you could have like a master plan and then execute it and be super successful. That's just not how it usually goes. So
yeah. Well, and it's like you have to go and like do it badly, and it's never going to work out exactly the way you think it's going to work out, And like going like somebody like I got into art because I wanted to do concept art for games and like World of Warcraft and all that kind of stuff, and then I fell into just like Watts and like working at Proco and doing like academic art, which is like the opposite of what like I wanted to do, And in a sense you could say like, oh, I failed at that, or I'm like, pursuing something I actually care about more, because I actually am doing that versus the like concept art stuff,
Is that something you're going to do, or you're not?
I don't want to do that shit. It's fucking, it's ridiculous. Like, I really admire it, but I think it's like, it just doesn't fit my temperament. Like I'm really stubborn and I'm really like ideologically driven. And the idea of doing that kind of art for a living is just, I don't know. It doesn't interest me in the same way that like this stuff interests me,
Oh yeah. I feel the same way when I wanted to do this. I want to do comics or illustration, single image illustration, and I still like that stuff, but I don't really want to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important part about all this stuff is like the art that you want to do might actually be completely different from the art you actually do, And like for me, the act of like going to figure drawing class or something was always easier than just like, grinding and trying to become a professional illustrator, And I think like leaning into what you do naturally is the way you figure out like the way you will like spend the rest of your life,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to a degree, I think part of it is the community makes it easier. Like if you can just sign up for a class and go there and some people you like, and it just makes it easier to do that. Whereas it's harder to find that community for concept art. Yeah. I'm sure there's schools that you could go to. But yeah, mostly it's people alone in their house on the computer. Right. So that's the hard part about sometimes being an artist. It's 90% alone time.
Yeah. Hey guys, I wanted to take a second to talk about the mentorships I'm hosting. Mentorship is personally something I found super useful. Having someone to bounce ideas off of, get critiqued by, and get general advice was instrumental to my development as an artist and as a person. I spent most of my professional life helping other people develop their brands and businesses. And if you'd be interested in having the same help, I'm charging $150 a month for a 1-hour phone call, access to me on Discord, and general art advice. In my experience, every successful person that I've talked to has spent a ton of time and money on their own education. Check out my website in the description if you'd like to see more information on it. If you'd like to talk with me before committing, that's totally fine. Contact me on my website for a 20-minute call to see if it'll work for you. Thanks, and back to the video.
Well, I found that even if you're like super famous, you're still alone. Even if you're selling paintings for $100,000, you're still spending most of your time alone. And I think it's like, if you don't enjoy that, if you don't enjoy being alone for like maybe months at a time in your studio, then maybe the act of like being like a professional image maker just isn't your thing, But I think even that being said, it's okay to still love drawing and still love creating things. It's just not in that specific like path that's set out,
Yeah. That's the hard one.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it comes a lot to like identity and stuff. And I think that a lot of people get caught up in specific outcomes for the way they want their life to go. They want to be super rich or super successful. They want to get approval from specific people. And I think that that's a dangerous path to go on, because it's so unlikely that your temperament is that specific that you're going to be able to get that specific recognition. That so something like the Autry show or working at Riot or Blizzard is so competitive that out of all the artists that want to work at Riot, like 1 million or so, only like 1,000 get to work there. So what happens to the other 999,000,
Yeah.
And
I mean, you just use it for motivation. It might not end up being what you want, or what you get, but you'll learn something and you'll develop the skills, and then you'll do your own thing.
Yeah.
Find some other path. That's basically all you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have these big ideas, but a lot of times you just end up settling with whatever you can accomplish.
Well, I think that's totally fine though. It's like, I don't know, from like a more nihilistic perspective, it's like nothing matters and, we're all going to die. It's like, which is true from one perspective, but from another perspective, it's like, I think it's really cool that people can find a lot of meaning out of just drawing other people for a living, or just teaching other people how to draw other people for a living,
Yeah. I mean, that's been great for me, just helping other people, and I do my own thing, but it really is just, helping people. That's kind of, I guess, impacted me the most.
Yeah.
As far as like
acts of service and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprisingly hard to also use your art for like charity and things like that.
Right.
I suppose you can, but I've looked and it's hard to just
hard to give away, maybe.
Yeah.
It's try and give it away and get a tax write-off and stuff, and it's worth $10 billion. I don't know. I think it's like, to me, the final image is becoming less and less important. Like the context surrounding it and like the connection of it is becoming way more relevant. And I mean, especially with AI art becoming so good, and just like, it's like hard to ignore, the context of like somebody, like how somebody created something and the connection they got from it. To me, that's way more important.
Yeah. Hopefully that's what, keeps us all doing this, because otherwise we're out of business pretty soon.
Yeah. Are you worried about that at all? Or?
Yeah. But it's also not just our industry; it's many industries. So, the weird thing is, you can't really trust the government to responsively and on time, come up with some solution to this problem.
Right.
So you just. We'll see what happens, I guess. I don't know.
I feel like I'm in the fucking Matrix, man. It's weird. Like, everyone I know I don't know anyone that's confident in their future, right now. Like, I knew people before that were like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be fine. But now they're like, I don't know, man. Like, it's getting weird. Like, I was hanging out with Marshall Vandroff the other day, and we did a little like podcast video together on ChatGPT. And we asked it to write a perspective lesson as a Dr. Seuss poem. And it came up with like a really good, I'll send it to you later, but it came up with a really good lesson on perspective in the voice of Dr. Seuss, like instantaneously,
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. Like,
I guess that's the way it's going. Everyone will just be an AI operator or whatever. Director.
Well, I think it goes to like a more existential level of like, what do you do once you don't require external validation? It's like, if AI actually solves the problem of us never having to create stuff again, whether art or podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever, paintings, like, is it still worth creating? And from one level, it's like, the external motivation is for sure there, like money and like freedom and all that stuff. But like, to what degree are we doing it just completely intrinsically because we enjoy doing it,
I think most people get into it because of that. They kind of just have to figure a way to make money at it. And ideally you would not want to have to make money at it, because that makes it a lot less enjoyable.
Yeah.
So hopefully, in some utopian world, we all just can do it as a hobby and have a great time with it. But we'll see if that happens.
I'm like thinking forward into the future about I think that to some degree I am motivated by that like extrinsic, just like I want to be rich and famous, to a certain degree. And that like, it's there for sure. And that like, propensity to pursue it. Like there's some things that I'm doing right now that I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be doing if I had either $1 billion or AI just automated it. And there was like no point in doing it, And, I think it's, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
yeah. I know. So you want to be rich and famous, huh?
Well, like from the degree that it lets me like do the things I want to do. I think most people like most people just want to like. I think most people who do art and draw, they just want to draw. They just want to do it for fun and stuff. And the trouble comes in the practical side of it, of like making money and paying rent and having a family, and the compromises to what somebody really wants to be doing with their time comes in that like necessity for survival. Like I don't. No, like, do you think you would have taught if there was no need to teach in the first place?
No. I mean, I didn't even really want to teach.
Yeah.
When the job was offered to me, but I ended up really liking it. So glad I did. But yeah. I mean, I think people probably will, just because it'd be nice, but. I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about. If you want to make money, art is probably not the way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, the most successful people that I know aren't just doing art. They have a business around it.
Yeah.
Like a school or something, right? And that's where they make the money, and it's not the art necessarily. Yeah. I mean, there are some people who make a lot of money doing art specifically, but it just
it's rare, right?
It's pretty rare,
yeah. And I think those people like selling art, like paintings or something, they're not necessarily selling the paintings. They're selling like an identity or something, or they're selling like a ticket to being part of a club,
Yeah.
Like the Autry show, it's like a bunch of people trying to decorate their ski houses or something. And
I don't know who's buying those, I guess. Just oil tycoons and
yeah. But I think it's like an active service almost. It's like I don't like paintings that much, honestly. Like
I like paintings.
I like paintings, but it's like I like you put it on your wall and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then you just like move on, And I like the act of painting and like making stuff, but the value in it comes from like the context of the image itself. Like owning the Mona Lisa would be a pretty like cool thing that people would recognize, not because the painting is great, but because there's a lot of context behind that particular image. It's like survived through World War II and World War I and created by like this amazing famous artist and had huge impact on history. It's like an image everybody knows, and like that's the value there. It's not necessarily the like it's never the image itself.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Me personally, I would rather own other paintings.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can even get those paintings for fairly cheap.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's super cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. I really like looking at art, and living with it is cool. I got a couple small pieces from other people, but I don't know. I think I pretty much enjoy looking at them.
Yeah.
More than any other context about it. Just the execution.
Right.
That really is what gets me more than anything. So
yeah. Well, and like you're still gonna paint even after AI takes everyone's job, right?
Yeah. I mean, assuming I can, and I don't have to go do something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll still be around in some way.
Yeah. I think so too. But I think it's like moving forward, the experiential side of art is becoming more important than the final result. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's probably temporarily, at least, the fine art side of art is gonna be where everyone moves to.
Yeah,
because commercially, AI will probably take quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that'll do to the fine art markets.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get pretty crowded there.
I mean, I think, I mean, to me, the Watts Atelier is almost like a giant art project. Like, it's like I have said this before on the podcast, but it's more of like I equate it to like Mecca, where people will travel from across the planet, like a holy pilgrimage, and pay thousands of dollars, plane tickets, rent, all this stuff to like take classes with you guys. And like, people talk about you online in the same way they would talk about like, oh, this guy has like the secret, secret juice to like learn how to draw good and stuff. And
it's kind of weird. I don't.
Well, but it's like true in a sense, And, I don't know if it's. I just think that's the way human beings are. They look at like an ideal and they look at something and they're like, that's it. That's the thing I gotta. Instead of buying a house, I'm gonna spend $10,000 and like come here.
Well, I mean, it's probably not a bad investment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could get a house for $10,000.
Well, like yeah.
But it never hurts to invest in yourself, and so I think that's good.
Yeah. I don't think so either. And I think somebody giving themselves like the time to like focus on themselves and learn how to draw, and not necessarily focus on like how to make tons of money or something. Like, I think that's a totally reasonable way to spend someone's time. But I think from a more like existential perspective, like, why does somebody care about art at all in the first place? Like, why is the Met in Manhattan, like, it's on some of the theoretically like the most expensive land in the world. It's housed, in this incredibly well-maintained building, extremely beautiful, with billions of dollars in paintings. And theoretically that time could be spent, like, time and money maintaining the building and all that stuff could be spent like saving people's lives, but instead we've like decided to keep it there and allow people to go see these paintings instead of like building more hospitals,
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're kind of emotional creatures, so the art speaks to that side of us, and but yeah, for sure, there's a lot of money wasted on the world that could be used for other things. But I don't know. The art markets are a weird one because it doesn't make sense why things get so.
It doesn't make sense at all. I mean,
so there's definitely some shady money laundering or tax evasion going on. But
100%. Yeah. Well, I feel like there's that side of it, but there's also like the. Like, I think somebody saying something is valuable and then like standing by it is part of the reason why certain paintings are more valuable than others,
Yeah, there's definitely big museums and institutions that prop up the prices on certain things and control the price on certain things.
And credibility and stuff.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll get kind of decentralized, and then prices will come down a little bit. And not that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll just be better for generally everyone.
Yeah.
Versus these select few who
get
in there.
Yeah. Who are allowed to do it. I mean, as I'm moving forward, it's like so much of becoming a successful artist, like whether it's fine art or concept art or whatever, is like way more about who you know what you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like I will not name this friend, but he was talking with his friends at a little retreat, and that they're all artists in a game company, and they were all saying like none of them got hired by applying. They all knew a guy, they all knew somebody, and they have listings on their website, but they never look at them. It's more of like a symbolic, like, oh yeah, we'll take somebody great if they apply, but they're way more hiring internally or just through word of mouth than like the actual like setup path to somebody getting a job there.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience too, is like any gallery I've gotten into, it's because I was in a show and someone saw my stuff, or someone recommended me or I knew someone, right? Whereas if you just go and coldly apply, usually they don't even look at your stuff or want to look at your stuff. So, but that's probably just because it's a way to weed out the millions of people that are just doing that. So, there's just a way to kind of, make the process easier, I guess, for the people who have to do it is just trust someone they know that they already feel like, has a good idea of what the business is about or what they need and just go off of that. But there's certainly some favoritism and that kind of stuff too. But, you'll find your way in there eventually. It's just
time and effort and stuff. I feel like a lot of this stuff is almost like a faith in yourself and faith in like a process. Cause I know there are plenty of people that are out there like thinking like, what do I do? How do I make this shit work? Like, how do I make money as an artist and pay rent? And am I going to like work at Starbucks for the rest of my life? And I'm pretty sure that's a pretty common sentiment among not just young people, just people in general. And I think the path to, as I'm talking to more and more people, the path to being a successful creative person is just trying a bunch of shit out, and like not being afraid of failing or embarrassing yourself.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think that's the way to go. Yeah. And it's actually in a weird way easier to make a living as an artist now with social media and that kind of stuff. You can find your audience and connect to them. It's more in your hands than someone else's.
Yeah.
So that's good. But it's just, it's definitely a trial and error and just a lot of seeing what sticks. Yeah. Throw it up there and see what's successful.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if there were, an easier path to it. Yeah. But that's just not how it is in the arts.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, you kind of have to like pave your own way. And the previous way of doing it is often never the way it actually is supposed to go. It's like like online art creation and video games and all that stuff has become a much bigger industry than the fine art industry, when it's relatively new. Like video games are, only a few decades old and fine art is hundreds of years old,
Yeah. I mean, if you can combine your art skills with some other skill, I think that's the way to go about it. Because then, you're not just relying on the arts alone. You have, programming or, whatever. That's going to be probably a better way to go about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's certain industries that are, like gaming or, anything that will always do pretty well, even in a recession or something. So there's certain industries like that you can get into and either get a job with someone else or doing it on your own that you'd probably be pretty successful at, or, it can at least make a living with.
Yeah.
So fine art is not the one.
Yeah. It's hard, man.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Well, I guess from a broader level, like for a lot, like I know a lot of people who are in like the study trap. They're like perpetually preparing for an opportunity instead of like trying out their opportunities badly. For somebody that's like stuck in the like endless study. Do you have any thoughts on that or?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to push yourself and get out there. I kind of fall into that trap myself. I'll just paint and not worry about how to sell the painting. I just do another painting and then eventually you got a house full of paintings and nowhere to sell them. But you just got to force yourself to get out there and do things. It's kind of like that. Was it the Jim Carrey movie where it just says yes to everything?
Oh yeah, yes man. Yeah.
Just say yes, do everything, apply to everything. Yeah. Something will work.
Yeah. And I guess it's like kind of surprising how simple it is a bunch of the time. You're just like, just be yourself, just do what you're going to do anyways, and like no one can predict how the trends of right now are going to affect your future. Like somebody getting into computers in the 1970s, that was actually a great idea. Those guys started Facebook or Microsoft and Apple and all these giant companies. And at the time it was seen as this really dorky, meaningless thing, like computers. Oh, what's that shit? We gotta like send mail and stuff. But Yeah. That's overtaken the entire planet.
Oh yeah. You know, sometimes people just get lucky and they're in that time period where things are changing and they're interested in that, and it becomes a huge thing. Yeah. And that will continue to happen, and that's why you probably want to have one foot in that kind of new technology that's coming out, whether it's you know, VR or whatever that is, and if you can create in there and do stuff in there, that's probably the next area to do that if AI isn't taking over that. So you should always be experimenting with other things, have other hobbies, try to combine other interests with art and other hobbies, and that's where you'll kind of find your pathway, I think.
Well, and I guess it's like for people that are like learning how to draw, like it's okay to have other hobbies. Like I remember you were saying years ago, like your maximum class load while you were a student at Watts was like 3 or 4 classes, right? And
for me personally,
yeah.
No, I think I took like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
but then I did eventually go down to like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Just because you need that extra time to work at home and to work on your own things. Otherwise, you're just in class all day.
Yeah.
And sometimes people fall into that trap where they do just take classes. I think because it's just, you know, it's hard to get motivated, I guess. Be self-motivated. So the class is an easy way to do stuff. But, you know, it doesn't leave enough time to do your own personal thing and figure out your own way of doing it and that kind of thing. So you do need to factor that into your studies.
Yeah.
I think at first it's good to take a lot of classes and stay busy with that and just get as much information as you can. But eventually, as you get more experienced and more skilled, you got to spend more time alone doing your own thing and working out the
kinks. Right?
Kinks, like, you know, what do you want to do with it? How do you, what is your style, or what do you want to say with it? Right. And all that just takes a ton of time.
Yeah. Like way more than people think. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think as a professional image maker, you're spending way more time alone than you are in class again. And I think I read The Art Spirit, and it was talking about how, like, you know, they're like being in a class is like an easy excuse to just draw and just, you know, it's always a good idea to be in class because there's, you know, you're learning, you're progressing in something, right? But it's not nearly as risky as going out and doing your own thing. And like the real art is created when you're like in your room by yourself. You could be choosing to like play video games or watch TV or eating junk food, but instead you're creating, and you're like, you know, personally deciding that the creation of this thing is more valuable than this like dopamine releasing thing that you could be doing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that is a trap you can easily fall into, is, you know, especially as, you know, AI and all that gets better and better and easier access to entertainment and whatever. You can just waste your life doing that stuff and playing games or watching shows but, you know, if it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it can be pretty fun.
It's pretty awesome.
You know, if you want to accomplish something in life and you want to, you know, look back at what you've done. Yeah.
Positively.
About it. You know, you do have to learn to manage that and not let it take over your life. Otherwise, you'll just do that.
Well, and I think it's like learning to like have a healthy relationship with art more so than anything. Like I found when I was like trying to make other people happy with my artwork, I was actually not wanting to do it. And the more I was like just doing it because I really wanted to do it, like, I just wanted to like I trying to make it something that's equally as fun as video games. That's the goal, I think, you know, that's equally as rewarding. And it's like trying to trick your brain, or not even trick your brain, but just like making your brain value that stuff a lot more than, you know, like something like video games or TV or something, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that's just upfront. It's not going to be as rewarding, but, you know, over time, as you accomplish something, that's really where it becomes rewarding. You need that, you know, like perseverance, that you have to overcome something kind of thing. And that's where the reward is. It's not just that immediate, like,
instant gratification and stuff.
So, I mean, that's what you kind of have to learn, that doing something hard can be rewarding.
And
it takes so long.
Well, it takes a fucking long time of just failing and like having days even when you feel like you're good, like, oh, I'm a piece of shit, I can't do this anymore and stuff. And I think it's like having a healthy relationship with failure to the point where you're like, you have a failure, but it doesn't destroy your ego. It doesn't destroy like, oh, I'm a loser because I did a bad figure drawing today or something.
Yeah, you got to learn to separate that part of you from the art, and it doesn't really have any effect on who you are. But that's just art. It's a constant failure, and there's tiny wins with every piece, and a lot of failure with every piece, and you just slowly get better, and that's what takes so long. Yeah, even if you have all the knowledge and of how to do something and why to do something, and all that you would get from like going to a school or something, it still just takes so long. You just gotta experiment and try things, and there's so many ways to put it together and come up with a different outcome, and that just takes so long. And then there's that physical component of just training your hand and make certain marks over and over again, and being able to do that just takes so long.
Well, I found that like explaining to somebody how to draw actually takes like an hour. It's like how to shade a sphere objectively is pretty easy to understand. It's like core shadow, cast shadow, reflect shadow, like whatever. Color, even color theory, all that stuff is relatively straightforward. It's the knowing it intuitively is the frustrating part. And like knowing something objectively and concretely is completely different from something like knowing something intuitively,
For sure. That's what you have to do. You have to get it in there where you don't think about it anymore. And you can just do it. A lot of people come in with, like doctors and stuff like that, and they know anatomy better than I do. As far as like what it does and how it functions. Stuff, but that doesn't mean they can draw it. You gotta understand it as a shape and how it looks three-dimensionally in space. And that's the hard part to do. And it just, everyone's a little bit different. People are wired a little bit differently. Some can retain information a lot easier. Some people, you just have to beat it into them as far as like drawing this over and over and over again till you got it. And then even then it doesn't stick with you. You got to just keep drawing it. If you're going to invent figures, you got to just draw figures all day long. And if you stop for a year or two, you're going to see your skills go down. So that's the hard part, is it's a perishable skill to a degree. But that's also why you do it, is because you like doing it. So, but it makes it incredibly difficult.
Well, I guess going back to the beginning of the conversation, I don't know, like, I think people do it also for the external, like, validation, like showing somebody, like having that progression with other students or showing your parents or something, like, oh, look at this sick drawing I did. That is like a totally fine reason to keep doing something. And often that's maybe something that like pushes somebody through the times where they feel like, oh, I can't do this anymore,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's what gets you into doing it to begin with, right? You like, someone liked something you did and gave you some positivity. So you kept doing it. And then eventually you're the guy who's doing that. And it just kind of keeps snowballing. There's a lot of different reasons you could do it. I mean, you just got to find what works for you. And, I mean, you do got to learn to love it just to do it and enjoy the process, because you are going to spend so much time alone doing it if you want to be good at it. But I suppose, there's other routes you could go about it. You could, like, teaching is a great way to do it around other people and get some of that, get some of that love from other people, even though I find it a little awkward for me. But, I'm not to say I don't like it, but it's just, it is kind of awkward.
Kind of strange at certain points.
So.
I guess it feels strange just being a guy, like you see yourself as just like a dude, but then other people have like a hero worship thing going on and stuff. And,
Fortunately, it's not too bad for me. I'm going to purposely keep my skills crappy so that I don't have to deal too much with it.
Being seen as a celebrity or something. I guess it goes back to balance and everything. You know, it's like if you want to be an artist, you have to study and like know the stuff, but you also have to like do the things that you really care about, because then you're not gonna like actually want to keep doing it. You know, and the more you lean into one and not the other, the more you're like, I guess, giving up the potential for being better at the other thing.
Yeah, there's always trade-offs in life.
Yeah,
it's not always just like this is better, or we need to do that. It's, well, this is slightly better, and then there's still negatives to it, and it's always trade-offs, and there's a lot of sacrifice with being an artist or doing anything. You know, if you're going to do one thing,
can't do another thing.
You got to let go of other things. Yeah. So even as in art, you know, you kind of have to specialize. There's not too many artists out there that are good at everything.
Yeah. Well, and if they're really good at everything, then they're like a shit person. You know?
Yeah.
It's like I was reading about Norman Rockwell, and like he's an asshole apparently, right? Like, you know, like
definitely
alcoholic and stuff. And I mean, I love his art, and I'm sure like he was a fine person, like an overall average person, but it's also like, you know, people look at him as like, you know, he's painting like the epitome of American culture, you know?
Yeah. It definitely his family.
Yeah.
Yeah. He sacrificed a lot of time with his family.
Yeah.
Probably doing what he did, but that's kind of what you have to do. I mean, to be that good.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's ultimately like it always comes down to what you truly want, and I think the danger of like getting too much into a school or a job or any particular thing is that people tell you what is the correct decision, and you have to either accept or deny it based on what you know your personal like values are, you know, and like inevitably, just because of the complexity of life, you're going to make a mistake, and then like everyone I know who's ever been an artist has talked about a moment as an artist where they're like, why do I do this? You know, this is so hard. Like, I just want to like be an accountant or something. And,
yeah. I mean, if I had to do it over again, there's an argument for doing something else. Yeah. Like being a real estate agent, making your money there.
Practical.
And do that 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Just live like a penny pincher, save all your money, and then retire early and then do art or something. But you know, that's not necessarily fun either. So
no, it sucks. I mean, I think no matter like, I think the spiritual side of all this stuff is no matter what decision you make, you're going to suffer in some way. You're going to be like, this is dumb. I don't make enough money, or I don't have enough of my time, or I'm not doing what I really want to be doing. And I think it comes to like accepting that you are at certain points of the day, even you're like a different person. Like one day you're like, oh, I'm so glad I'm an artist. And the next hour you're like, fuck this shit, you know?
Yeah. You definitely grapple with those kind of things, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
But you know, that's life. It's suffering.
Life is hard.
A few moments of pleasure and, you know.
Yeah, I had some licorice this morning. It was pretty sick, but now I'm like, oh, it wasn't a good idea. You know?
Yeah, I mean, being a father, it's great, but there's a lot of
you have to change diapers now. You know, you have to clean poop off another human being. It's like, you know,
there's a lot of horrible things that go with that, but overall, it's a positive. But it's like,
well, I was talking to a friend who's also a parent, and he was saying it's like you don't like you live your entire life like for yourself, because that's just the way you own. Like that's the only way you know how to live, and then you suddenly have this other thing that you're responsible for. So you're suddenly like living for somebody else that's not you. You know, it's like I think people are still selfish, but it's like that reason to be selfish is a lot less apparent. You know.
It definitely changes things, and it's a new perspective that you gotta wrap your head around and figure out how you're gonna make your life work with that. That's always a weird thing, is because we are so selfish. That's kind of like, it's definitely one thing you can count on. I'm pretty selfish all in, you know, and like I think it's actually. I think the only way somebody gets validation in their life is through acts of service, you know, and
I think to become an artist, you have to be pretty selfish. You have to like, instead of like volunteering or like doing all this other stuff, you have to sit alone in your room and like draw a cool orc or something, you know, or draw a cowboy or whatever. And like you spend a lot of time just by yourself thinking about your own ideas, and like whether that's good or bad, it doesn't matter, but you're just not necessarily as in tune with the world directly as you would be if you were, you know, touring the world or something. Or
yeah, I mean, but it's good to know yourself, and that's one thing that you get from it is really understanding yourself better, because you spend so much time alone. And a lot of times people just avoid that. You know, they spend every waking moment distracting themselves with something and or with other people, and so it's good. But you have to have a balance in life, and that's the main thing, is trying to find that balance. It's definitely going to be weighted towards being alone, but there's times when, you know, obviously you can find a way to, you know, bring your art to other people and do it around other people. And that's what you kind of have to look for, whether it's just, you know, maybe as an artist, you own your own gallery and you paint out of the gallery, and customers come in every now and then. That's how you connect to people and, you know, spend time. But there's always ways to figure it out. But I mean, if you can find a way to be less selfish, that's gonna obviously, I think, make you happier. But
well, I think in terms of like making the most money and also like potentially getting the most direct meaning out of art, like a lot of it has to be like making images for other people. You know, just like what does this person really want? What do they care about? Like having that almost like instruction or just like roadmap to making someone else happy is, I think generally like no one really knows what they want. So having an idea of what somebody else wants and then giving them that, I think, is a lot easier of a problem to wrap your head around than like, how do I not be a nihilist, you know? And,
I'm not sure. To me, it's always just finding that balance. Cause like if you're working for a client, you know, they want something and you want to make the job fulfilling and enjoyable for yourself. So you're trying to find that overlap between those two. And that's the thing you got to figure out. Yeah. So, you know, that's a hard skill to sometimes do. Yeah. Because sometimes they're in opposition of each other, it seems. Yeah. But that's kind of what your job is. Yeah. If you work with clients, you got to figure that out. So. Yeah. It's complicated. Like doing all this stuff is the combination of giving up your own personal interests and, I guess, trying to make the practical side of it work. And I think ultimately art is just a form of communication, and you're just like trying to communicate a specific emotion or feeling to somebody, and like focusing on what your intentions are and what your goals are. I think it's the only way that's ever possible. Yeah. That's something that is kind of challenging with art, because there's other art forms that maybe communicate things, emotions easier, like music. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, did you have any like overarching goals or anything you want to do with your art right now, or? Not really. I mean, at this point, I don't really even think about art too much. I'm a dad, and I teach. Yeah. Right. And I try to help other people and with their goals. Yeah. And mine are just kind of on the back burner. I don't really think about it too much. Yeah. I guess really, I mean, I like plein air painting. I like, that's probably my favorite thing to do. Yeah. So that's ideally the way I want to go about it, but teaching will probably always be part of my life too. Yeah. And, you know, I like traveling. So, I mean, like my ideal life would be traveling and painting and teaching, but, so I'm just trying to figure that out, but when I have time, but yeah. Well, I was talking to Stan about it, and like when he became a dad, the idea of him becoming a painter just fell on the back burner, and he found that he enjoyed the act of hanging out with his son and playing games with his son was way more enjoyable than the act of painting, you know, and like way more spiritually fulfilling as well. And
I think a lot of people get caught up with the idea that painting is the most important thing to them when it's really not. It's like,
yeah, you can easily
find something else that's like way more interesting and
I mean, just in general, you can kind of get your priorities all messed up, and definitely family and your community, and that's probably way more important than what you do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely, me personally, I started very heavy on just drawing and painting, and I was kind of, I didn't have anything else to do. So by default, that's what I did a lot. But yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time working on myself and being a better person, and just, building a life.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of effort. So sometimes the work or, the art stuff, it goes just to the side and sits on the back burner for a long time, and you work on these other things.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said about like being like art being a thing that benefits your life versus being like a slave to art, and I think a lot of people sacrifice way more for like their career or whatever than they actually want, because that they think that that's going to be the thing that makes them popular or famous or validate them or something. And
I mean, you got to have a goal, and maybe that is what your life is about, is just working. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But
I was talking to Weisling about this too, where he was saying that like, he was pretty successful pretty young, and he's in a lot of ways hit that idyllic life of like selling paintings for a lot of money, getting paid for illustrations and stuff. And he was saying that he like became he was worshipped art like his god, like instead of like focusing on himself and what validated him personally, he was like trying to do like movie posters and all this stuff, because like from like a young age studying with like Fred Fixler and stuff, that's all he cared about. And then as he got older, he's like, oh man, like I haven't paid attention to like the sides of myself that I wanted, like that, like, wife, girlfriend, having a group of friends, like personal stuff,
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Yeah. Especially if you get good young, it's because you were obsessed.
Yeah. And it's like,
and eventually you'll probably figure out that there's other things you got to work on too.
Yeah.
Again, it's just being kind of balanced.
Yeah.
But being obsessed is okay when you're young. That's probably the time to do it.
Right.
And then, as you get older, you figure out other things and try to incorporate other things in your life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's probably better to be obsessed with something and get really good at it versus just, partying or doing something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you can't party like you could when you're 20, when you're 70. So you might as well just do it when you're 20. So
Or are you gonna say you're gonna start partying a lot and stuff? And,
Don't wait until you're retired to do that.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend say it's like, a lot of people do that. Like, I'm going to really work a really steady job and not risk anything and, retire. And that's when I'm going to start traveling when I'm 60 and stuff. But like by the time you've done that entire grind, you're no longer the person that will like go backpacking in Bali and sleep in hostels,
Yeah.
It's like you just become a different person. So those adventures are kind of closed off to you at certain ages,
Yeah.
Sort of,
I definitely think, me personally, I'd recommend taking a risk. I wish I had taken more.
Yeah.
I should probably build a van and go travel in it.
Yeah.
And that is sort of my goal. I would like to get a vehicle or something like that and hit the road.
Yeah.
But now I got a family to take with me, so it complicates everything.
You have a house and stuff. And, got to make the money. I don't know. Again, I think it's like all this stuff. Like the trouble of being a creative person is I don't think at all it's actually being the best. I think it's like the person that's able to balance the like actual execution of creative stuff with the like life stuff,
For sure, that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Just any people skills is also going to make your job as an artist way more easier.
Yeah.
So don't neglect those.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely balance, because you have to make something that other people are interested in. So if you have a more balanced life and perspective, then you're gonna be able to do that a lot easier.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's probably the main thing people can take from this is while it is good to be obsessed for skill development, there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
And
to like go outside sometimes and like hang out with your friends and like to try and live your life. And well, I appreciate you doing this. I'm fine wrapping it up now.
Cool.
Do you want to tell people how to follow you?
Probably Instagram, Ben_M_Young.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Ben M. Youngs out there.
Yeah.
I'm not on it too much lately. Yeah. I think it's not currently on my phone, but I do check it every now and then.
Yeah.
But that's probably the most easiest place to get in touch with me or see what I'm doing.
And if somebody wants to learn from you, they could just take classes at Watts or something.
Yeah, Watts Atelier. So that's my
cool. All right. Well, I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Good. Seeing you.
Sick.
Talking to you.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Okay.